How everyone's doing? Welcome to our breakout session, Learning Technology and Industry. My name is Cordaro and I'm with Kline, and we're representing Marathon Petroleum Corporation. I started out in operations, and I have had the opportunity to be the end user on the VR side of learning. And then I moved over to training, and now I had the opportunity to be on the development side and get a chance to learn how to develop and teach others about what we do.
Hi, and I'm Kline. I'm a training specialist also, and before I go any further, we're just representatives of a team, and so we have some of our other team members, so if you want to talk to us afterwards about some of the things in the presentation, feel free, and I'm going to have the guys that are right down here in the front rows, so raise their hands for us, so they're part of the team also, so maybe if you see in the middle of it, we might look down to get some hints or something. Don't think anything of it. So we'll get started.
All right, so today we want to talk to you guys about our journey and the process. Then we're going to move on to the use and availability of the equipment. And of course, we're going to share our experiences with you guys. And what brings us here today is that we want to learn more about the new technology that's out there and how we can progress in the future.
So this journey, you've heard this term digital transformation, and it's one that we use also at Marathon, but just advancing this technology and this VR space not only has been quite successful in an entertainment realm, but also in industry. So we're just going to kind of share our story as it starts, and we're going to kind of really start at the end. We have probably 4 virtual reality programs that we have, and we just receive a lot of requests for demonstrations. We've received them from engineering, received them from health, environmental, safety, and security. We've received them from corporate leadership. So what we've done, we provide a lot of demonstrations. And so Coop, me and you, we often do these demonstrations. So what are your insights by doing these demonstrations?
Doing these demonstrations, I think that it provides momentum, creates momentum for us, where we can show what we've done with the VR, where we started, where we began, and it gives everybody excitement. First, when we talk about it, they don't think too much into it, and then once we get into those demonstrations, we get a couple of different individuals inside the same environment, and they can interact with each other within that environment. It changes their whole mind and aspect of learning.
Thanks, Cordaro. And so we want to kind of stop at we'll get back to the VR piece of it here a little later, but right now, where we started. And you see on the screen, we actually started with these making videos. As simple as taking the phone out of our back pocket and filming it. And then we started getting into 3D modeling. We did some 3D modeling in-house, but I just want to give you an example of the next slide we will, but Cordaro, what do you think are some advantages of 3D modeling?
A lot of the advantages that we have with 3D modeling, it takes away from trying to pass things around in our classroom setting to just showing it on one big screens. Those objects that are real small, you can show them in detail on screen versus trying to look at them in your hand or through a microscope. You're going to see on the next slide of an example that we have with a monoblock.
The top image was the monoblock. And before we show you, and we're going to show you the example of the video with the 3D modeling, and there's going to be some audio in the back. You're going to see some things. Before we show that, though, I do want to just say that, if you would have asked us 4 or 5 years ago if we would be standing at an AES breakout session, we would have said, "What's that?" You know, so wherever you're at on this journey, whether it's I don't have any equipment now, that's where we were at one time. We pulled the phones out of our back pocket and recorded a video. Now, and that's not to say that that provides no value, because the video you're about to watch, we still use this video for repair of a control valve. So you're going to see a control valve, you're going to hear a little audio, you're going to see one of our field training specialists go through it and how that 3D model comes into play.
We're going to rebuild a Smith 210 control valve. First thing you want to do is verify that
So
you have alert
set the stage for you a little bit. It's our Nashville Training Center. Here's our field training specialist just going through, here's how you repair it. This is just a quick clip of this video. And it's just throwing some text on there, uses some video editing tools. And then you'll see, here's the one that we really like. As he's taking it apart, we go to the 3D modeling. And then there's another one that we have that is a load arm, so a piece of equipment that we take to load fuel onto a truck. As simple as greasing this load arm. We just show it here in 3D. That particular load arm was created in-house. And then we just followed it up with the video. Hey, we're going to give it 3 pumps. We're going to and there we go. So, you know, that's really where we started. And we just, as the tools became available to us, we learned them. And you can see we're going from the video to incorporating 3D modeling, and then all of a sudden the 3D modeling, we started doing some in-house. Now, do we do all 3D modeling in-house? No, we don't, because there's multiple places you can purchase 3D models. You can see here that we have this particular mono block is the top image. And Coop, what are your thoughts on the 3D modeling?
When it comes to 3D modeling, like I said earlier, it saves time. As you look at the image at the top of the mono block, you have those 2 gears right in the middle. We call them cams, and you also have O-rings in there that we want to demonstrate in class on things to look for when they're troubleshooting. In the real world, the size of those gears are probably as small as this quarter. You can't really see them unless you're up close to them. So when we show this 3D model version on a big screen, we can get more detailed on what those look like, how to pull them out, how to put them back in, instead of just passing around a little block to everybody for them to see, which takes time. It saves us about 45 minutes to an hour of us just sitting there waiting for every individual to look at a piece of equipment when we can show it on the screen.
Thanks, Cordaro. And here, the mono block, this particular piece of equipment, here's a picture of it. And then as we rolled the video for it, you could see how we took the image and this was produced in-house. Now we present it to a class when we have, or either virtually or in person. We can, you just do what you do in 3D modeling. You can zoom in, where Cordaro talked about these cams inside. Sometimes it's kind of hard to see that when you just have the small piece of equipment in there. So this particular one was built in-house because it's kind of unique to us. So the next one that you're going to see as we go through is the rail car. Now, we had a need to have this rail car in 3D because some situations we'll talk about in just a moment, but we purchased this one. And the same thing applies. Hey, as we're doing inspections on that, we can turn it, we can train people how, hey, this is the A end, the B end of the car, which B meaning the brake end of it, A end, the opposite end. So there's a lot of advantages of just having something that you can rotate in that 3D model. So here's a picture of it. Now we're going to move on to the virtual reality piece. Okay, so we have this rail car, you can see the image there, and some of the reasons why, you can see in the bullet items, we had some scheduling conflicts where there wasn't always rail cars available, which could mean that we're shipping so much product and lack of cars or whatever the case. So there were some scheduling issues. We had this controlled learning environment. We could also make these cars have some deficiencies in them because, we do the inspections not to have them, but there's also times in the virtual world we can put those in, some common things that we've seen in past inspections that we have that's failed. So, and then the evaluation. So the Federal Railroad Association we're associated with, so we go through and kind of do these evaluations. So here's kind of a little video of the VR space. You're going to see a legend show up here shortly that kind of identifies 3 different kind of cars that we have out here. We have a clean one, a defaced one. So we're going to start with the one kind of with the graffiti on it. We try to make this real as life as possible. And then these inspections, looking at the stenciling, looking at, if you look at the car a little bit, you can see a dent there on the other end. And hey, what's this bottom valve look like? Is it tight? Does it have a chain? And then we go over to the springs here on the wheels, and sometimes those springs, after the unloading the cars, those can split, and you can see how we can zoom into that. We worked with our VR developer to provide that for us. And then you can see chalking so it doesn't roll on you while you're gone and while you're doing the inspections. And then, of course, the dome where everything gets loaded. Make sure the plugs are tight, make sure the valves are closed. And so there is a lot of inspection type things that we can train on or do evaluations thereof. It's an Appendix C. Those of you who are familiar with the Railroad Association, that is where that comes from. So that really saved us a lot of money. We calculated how we would have to travel and all the costs with that compared to what it costs to do it in VR. And I think we had about a $60,000 savings in a year. I mean, it was substantial.
This is a VR version of our vapor recovery unit. This is personally one of my favorites because I was able to learn from it and teach with it. I didn't get to develop it or anything like that, but I was able to be a true testament to showing what VR does for the end user. It's an exact replica of our VRU at our Ventvale, California terminal. It's a vapor recovery unit, and what it does is it takes vapors from our loading rack and turns them back into liquid and send it back to the tank, and that's how we recycle those vapors. This VR environment teaches the 4 main functions of the vapor recovery unit, which is gasoline, glycol, scrubbed air, and vapors.
There you go.
And vapors, but within the VR environment, it teaches you the different flows, the different products. It lets you know about the components that make up the VRU system. Before actually going into the real world. You can go over alarms, troubleshooting scenarios, different things like that. By us having 2 training centers, we have an actual vapor recovery unit in one of our training centers, but the other one, we don't have one at. So this is where this shows this most value because they can get the same learning experience without having to go into the real world and shut down critical equipment. Once this piece of equipment shuts down in the terminal, we're not allowed to operate. So we don't want to play with those types of things in the training world. And this is where the VRU saved us from having to struggle with that. This video right here is a video of that actual vapor recovery unit in Vinville. It's going to show how we transition to the VR environment. It looks exactly the same. And where we started at was 3D modeling. We had this 3D model to show, which kind of showed the same thing with the flows, but it wasn't really interactive with us. The VR environment is more interactive, where we can go through alarms, open and close valves, stop flows from certain directions, which you're going to see coming up next after they sign in. But it gave us that interactive, real feeling without having to be in the actual field. And messing things up, we don't want to mess things up and stop us from making money, right? This is a picture of the vacuum pump showing what products go in the vacuum and what comes out of it. And that's a full overview of that actual vapor recovery unit at the Vinville terminal. And this is when the guys are able to put the headsets on and feel like they were actually in the environment.
You know, and we've even had people when talk about some people are skeptical putting the headset on, and we had somebody once they put it on, and we have some platforms that you can kind of overview, and they got on one of the platforms, and we said you can still walk around, and their knees locked. They go, I can't move. I go, yeah, you can. Really, you're standing on, you're in a room like this, and you know, we got space cleared, you're okay. I can't. You don't understand? I can't do it. And they just locked their knees and they froze. So I think getting people in those situations, immerse them in the virtual reality, it's really very engaging towards that. Another one of the VR trainings that we have is fire extinguisher training. Our organization over in trucking, we partnered with them to develop this. You see some images there, and we're going to show you a little video of the VR with the fire extinguishers. But you can see those with the headsets on. And as we go through this, we've done a few unique things in this particular one. You're going to hear a narration a little bit in the background, but we put a video billboard in here with instructions.
Master battery disconnects. Do not open the hood if you can avoid it. Spray
I'll let you just listen in here a second.
the radiator or from the underside of the vehicle.
So even before this piece, we had a tutorial of how to operate the extinguisher using the pass method. You know, pull a pin, aim, squeeze, sweep. You know, so they went through that. Now we took some I don't want to say common, but fires that can happen on trucks. So an engine fire in this particular case, showing you, highlighting, go get the extinguisher, and then hey, make sure, use this. If you can't pop the hood, you know, spray it in the vent, spray it up underneath, spray it, you know, so it gives you some instruction. And one of the advantages of doing this is that we don't want to put people in these dangerous situations. We don't want to, you know, we've had issues getting burn permits and things like that. So, and we want to be environmentally conscious of what we're doing. And so it's not one that we would want to put a truck on fire and do it. And then you can see the end of this scenario is sometimes a portable extinguisher doesn't have enough to put out the fire. So we're saying, okay, go to a safe place. So it's more of a memory that you can think of, that you was in the virtual world without being exposed to the danger of it. And hopefully that you would remember your experience if that really ever happened to you. So really as we go along, it's like, how did you get to that spot? You know, and how do you spread it out? Do you have so many headsets? We probably have about 20 headsets. Not everybody likes to get in a headset. So there's some just claustrophobic, whether it's too heavy, you know, they just don't like the being completely enclosed and not seeing around them. But one of our VR developer helped us with giving us a PC version. Now what we do have is all those with either laptops or desktops. So we had a PC version, and our particular environment in our VRU can have multiple users in it. So we can take, and that can be from both the headsets and the laptops. So we've really found that beneficial to have a piece of equipment that everybody has access to, that we don't have to have 1,000 headsets. So we're just starting, we're building as the need is there, purchasing more, and but other things, and then it's this controlled environment like Cordaro was talking about. We don't want to shut these things down. If we shut these things down, we got to shut down the whole terminal. We can't load anymore. So we need to keep these running, and we've just used these in a training format that they show the flows, and like Cordaro said, we actually have a working one that works on water up in our Brecksville Training Center. So before they actually put their hands on that, where you can't really see the flows, you're just seeing pipe, we introduce them to this so they can get the concept of it. So we've kind of covered these items, and so what's next, right? What's next? So we're here trying to find out, hey, what is next? What do we do? Some of the things that we're exploring is how do we, this whole new AI, right? Maybe it's not so new to some of you, but probably we're trying to find what's the application that works for us. This whole journey really is a matter of us finding the tools that we have, learning them, put them into applications, and then finding other tools that would help us, learning them. Not only, I think there's times being training specialists, I know most of us I think we like to learn more than others. So so when those become available, we like to try to learn those. So one is AI. Coop, what else?
We're just looking for things that are more cost effective for us to develop on our own, teach, and also learn from. Kind of like how we did with the 3D printer we just got. We just got a 3D printer, and all the stuff we learned about 3D modeling and how to create our own 3D models. I'm excited to start printing out some of the things that Juan created that we can start using in some of our training classes. So, yeah, ways to save money, get good training, and be effective.
Absolutely, absolutely. So briefly, that has been our journey. Any questions? Yes, sir.
As far as your question, kind of what's next, and I'd say you guys are in a great, Nick Turner, GHD, you guys are in a great spot. We build a lot of things for a lot of different entities, and I think you guys with the Unity and Unreal are kind of right at where people are with that and the training. And I think what's next, really kind of these same tools on the operations side, right? Giving the operators kind of that same kind of thing, but then real gauges of whatever's important to you, the heat, the flow, the pressure, whatever it might be. So then those operators start to kind of get some of that same thing.
Yeah, and I'm glad. Thank you for that. And really, we're trying to right size it. Just like even though videos may sound old school, that video works for us. It really does, and it's only probably 4 or 5 minutes long. Tears down the whole thing, puts it all back together. Guys watch it, and they go, guys and gals watch it, and they go, okay, got it, I can go do this, and they go do it, and they put it back together. It works. That's a solution. So that is a solution. But it reminds me one of the reasons why we use the VRU. I was able to spend about 5 years in the field, just at the end user with the workforce. And the number one requested, and we'll ask Cordaro about it too, but the number one requested training we had was that VRU. I don't understand it like I should. How does it do this? How does it do that? And it was, I mean, there was no close second. It was absolutely, and so that's what really drove that development. Okay, let's start with, what if we showed them a 3D model? Okay, great. It's not really interactive. I wish we could turn some valves. I wish we could, what if you turn this valve? Does it really affect the other piece over here? And what's this piece doing when this does the, and then we built some scenarios in it also. So we put some simulations of common alarms that happen, when heat, so obviously a big one, and even the fire extinguisher, just those have really come from the field up, and we really try to listen for that, because that's an easy sell. We can all say, hey, look at the reports, look at how often it's being worked on, and we're getting feedback from the field that we need this training. So thank you for that question. Yeah.
I'm going to struggle to even know how to ask this question, so bear with me.
Okay.
But I'm an instructional designer, so I see a lot of the development side of the technology. It makes a lot of sense to me, but from a designer point of view, how are we sequencing the content? How are we providing the structure with this tech? What structure and how are you providing the structure to instructors, to how to use the technology with the learners,
Right.
what sequence,
Yeah, so let me try to, just for those who may be watching, so how, as an instructional designer, how do we support that and design for it and provide information for instructors to use this particular piece of equipment? So we have, I'll try to keep this answer short, but we have a skills matrix that we have some, where we've done some instructional design there, and then we have found not only use in a training center setting that we introduce this before we let them see the main one, to get the hands on, but we've also used, especially being able to use PC version, showing them, hey, and we have some variation in this piece of equipment from spot to spot. So, hey, yours would be, and then we just really try to address it from their vantage point, and not so much as one size fits all. You got anything to add to that, Coop?
Small dosages.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give the VRU an example where it's a lot of different components that you can't really see what goes on in the inside of them, and it's a lot of information that goes on with the vapor recovery unit. So that's how we got the 4 main parts. We broke them down into those parts, and that's how we built it out from there. We know there's a gasoline side. What happens in the gasoline side? Well, once we in order to get to the gasoline side, we have to get the vapors from the rack. Those vapors go somewhere. Something has to happen somewhere, and we have to capture that somewhere else to turn it back into liquid, to send it back. So, and then that takes us to our scrubbed air, and having those 4 main parts, which are the most important part to understanding what the vapor recovery does, we just broke it down into those small chunks and then added it all together at the end. And that's how we designed it.
Yeah. Does that help?
Yeah, I was just trying to get a sense of where the structure was.
Yeah.
You're going to deal with this from a programmatic level so that every time we have a class, we're delivering the same experience.
Yes.
So we have measurement, right? Because how can we measure
Right.
our how we're utilizing the technology and if it's effective if we're not delivering it similarly every time?
Well, it didn't begin to look like this. It was clunky at first, and then as you practice with it and go over it, you add more, you begin to remember more things that you might have forgot, and then you go back to the drawing board and you add more, or you take out something that may not be as viable and you thought it was viable, things like that.
Yeah.
Trial and error.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I remember I did this class early on, and I used Visio, and I broke it out into 4 separate systems. So that's where, that's where I started, and then it ended up here. So it's good to hear that. Yes, back here.
Yeah, my question over on technology. You're doing your development in-house, and how often do you update your experiences or iterate them, or how often do you feel you need to?
Yeah, good question. How often do we update the VR piece of this? Yeah. So I'll start off by saying we got in a. I'll get a smile from these guys down front, part of the team. We got stuck reviewing it so much that we probably spent a little over a year, and we finally said, "Man, we got to stop. We got to roll it out." And so we have a good relationship with our VR developer. So at times when we've done that, we kind of, hey, we jot down, here's some things we want to change at the next update. So maybe when we do that next project, hey, while you're there, and we try to provide a template. I don't know if you've noticed it, but most of the time that template, that background, that was all the same in everything. So that was kind of a savings, and really, let's go with new technology. I'm going to add on something I didn't mention earlier, but hey, our ultimate goal is we want to have a virtual terminal, working tanks, working, we got the VRU, we want to get the loading rack in there, get all the auxiliary things in there, and so that's one of the goals. But yes, that's kind of how we approach that, in that we tried to make sure it was solid when we rolled it out. Yeah, good question. Thank you. Anybody else? What we got?
410.
Yep.
All right.
Okay, that's all we had. Thank you very much.